what I thought it might be fun to start with is the Tesla. The roller coaster ride that Tesla is on.
Yeah.
Morgan, yeah, Morgan Stanley just threw this thing out there that's like, hey, we know that Tesla's down 50% peak to trough, but we still think that it can be 800 by the end of the year. Let me just pull up the pull that up here for 1 second because I thought it was fascinating. I
The
did not
the
see this coming.
the end of a year or within a year?
Within 12 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Morgan Stanley note here says Tesla below election price 200, then 800. Tesla shares have fallen 50% from December 17th highs, down 45% year to date, and went down even more after that, on poor sales data, negative brand sentiment, and market degrossing. We see the pullback as a buying opportunity for an embodied AI compounder. I've been hearing this a lot from Kathy Woods, from other analysts out there, that the AI component of basically all of Tesla's holdings, all of Elon Musk's holdings, but especially Tesla, is
Mhm.
something that can't be accurately measured. The note goes on to talk about the idea that they make the claim that the narrative around Tesla follows the market price. That it's the tail wagging the dog situation over here, and that you can't actually read into that, and that Elon has shown himself in the Doge role that he's perfectly willing to cut what needs to be cut in order to get uh, increase the bottom line, increase net revenue, and that the volatility in the asset, the 50% drawdown, is proof that there's enough volatility here to make it worthwhile and possible for an upside move.
Mhm.
So I thought it was pretty fascinating. Uh, Is it convincing to you at all to
A-
take a
a-
stab at Tesla?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I'm a little bit different of a position now, but that there again, I love huge drawdowns. They're usually the most attractive times for me to get in on potentially undervalued assets. Interestingly, I still don't see Tesla as undervalued. Using the traditional metric of price to earnings, they're still over 100 PE. But it's one of those things where it's a highly coveted growth stock that, when looked at as a combination of being an automaker and a technology company, and sort of like the future brand involved in the entire emergence of the EV industry. I think there's a few things that I would want to consider in terms of potential headwinds for Tesla. One of it is just the emergence and sort of expansion of electric vehicles across all kinds of different brands. There's a lot of competition out there now that didn't exist even in 2020, when Tesla's price to earnings ratio was over 800. And I think there was a lot of excitement around the brand at that point. And we've since seen some pretty big drawdowns in Tesla's price over that period of time, only to see it rebound when Tesla hits the news again. So this feels a little bit like, I think the narrative that they might be spelling out there is that there is a bit of market voting in place here in terms of Tesla's brand. And a lot of people, I think, are overly invested in the Tesla brand rather than the actual economics of the company. So I am interested in it at this point because it has pulled back so far. Even another 10% would be pretty interesting. If it pulled back to a 60% drawdown would really be interesting to me, because I do think that at some point the news is overblown and there's a pretty good opportunity to find support. So I would probably overlay some technicals on top of this, look for some areas where there's clearly some buyers starting to step back in, and be interested in holding for a period of time to take a decent trade on this. What I do also find interesting is that as I look at some of the Wall Street analyst feedback on where the street expects Tesla to be in the next year, they're in agreement, maybe not an $800 price target, but across 42 analysts, there's about a sort of an average 1 year price target of $343 at the moment, which even there, that's up 42% over the next year. And there's really a lot of low disagreement between these analysts. That said, what's also interesting is that if you look at where analysts expect Tesla's price to be even in the next quarter, they're expecting it to be below 200 as well.
So the thing that I find the most fascinating about a Tesla play is that, well, one, years ago the argument was that they wouldn't even be able to sell any cars. like there was a whole conspiracy that it was fake and that was just a money laundering operation, or that it was like a intel thing from the government. Like that was the conversation. Then they started shipping out cars. People really liked it, and then it became like the darling for a while in the news cycle. Um, but the idea that that's floating around now, that people are selling the stock because they don't like what he's doing within the administration,
Right.
that I find to be very hard to believe, because big money players don't necessarily, from what I understand, they don't make their decisions based on their feels, the vibe of a thing. It's just about the sale. So there was news floating around this week that BYD, the Chinese counterpart, was actually selling more EVs, but then it came out later on that they're actually including within that the hybrid cars, whereas the Teslas are only selling a pure EV plays.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. But the most fascinating thing to me is the AI component. So Grok, I mean, I don't know how much Grok has taken over, how much share that takes up inside of your AI plays, but to me, Grok has been the best AI tool. I mean, one of the best I've seen ever. And to me, it makes ChatGPT feel like Yahoo to directories to Google. I really feel like I'm missing a huge amount of information. I mean, do you remember the days of for ChatGPT? That data is not within my training set. I only have information up until
Oh, right. Yeah,
2023.
yeah, yeah. Which is starting
Yeah.
to change now that they can crawl the web. Right.
So yeah, so they can call the rep, and then you're like, okay, so this should have up to date information, but because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have social information,
Yeah.
Reddit or
Grok is
Twitter,
impressive from that regard. Yeah. In that perspective, you're absolutely correct.
I feel like, oh, I do the exact same searches on both, and I go, this is a problem, and so
But
I'm
I
actually
guess
kind of,
you're seeing Tesla as sort of a proxy to your vote for Twitter's success, though, with Grok or X's success, and I think
yeah.
that that component where people are basically voting for Elon's endeavors by way of Tesla is part of what unfortunately sort of over amplifies the value of Tesla, because we don't get to play a part in the economics of X or in SpaceX. Well, it's they're neither of those are publicly traded, so we're kind of placing a vote for Elon through Tesla.
But the bet was, we've heard about AI at Tesla back when ChatGPT first started, like when it first took
True.
the world by storm. Elon was sort of shrugging his shoulders, going, "Well, I have an AI at Tesla,
I see
and
what
it's
you mean.
just as good."
So you're saying
Um,
Grok is sort of a preview for how good this technology could be at Tesla.
how fast he developed it,
Mm-hmm.
how great it works, and how useful it is. It's sort of like, well, if this is underpinning, like he was saying that they're using AI in order to get their stuff done, just not in the Chat GPT way, just in
Right.
other ways.
Right.
And so if they're using that in order to solve problems, it actually lends to the whole idea that, hey, we would be 10x more productive with AI on the market. And if he's had this 10 years beforehand, then all the things that Elon's been doing to me seems far more reasonable, as opposed to how on earth is he finding time to actually do all these different projects. And
Okay.
so I'm very fascinated with that. And so and then the reason he had developed the AI, from what I understand, remember, I didn't pull up the clip, but it was for the self-driving, that they needed the AI systems in order to be able to do that properly.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're saying, hey, we're going to have full self-driving, wheelless, like steering wheelless, pedalless vehicles by the end of the year. Have you seen this?
No.
Let me pull this up here.
Yeah.
This is
Let's
a
see
clip
this.
that, 1 second. I mean, Frank, this is Elon and Trump on the
Self-driving. We have so
White House. You let me know if you can hear this.
He makes one car.
Yes.
This one I don't understand. This one I don't want, but that's okay. Without a steering wheel, it comes out next year. Right?
Yes.
Explain that, please.
yes. Well, the Cybercab starts production in Texas next year, and it's self-driving. We have so much confidence in the self-driving nature of it that it'll actually not have a steering wheel. It will not have pedals. It'll either self-drive or not drive at all. But it'll self-drive. President Trump.
And I'm going to pass on that particular. He makes one.
So
Okay,
Trump
so
doesn't
car.
Trump doesn't trust
This
it.
one I don't understand.
He's going to pass on the self-driving angle.
he's too old. He's part of the too old generation to risk his life on that.
Okay.
So he was talking about the idea that the AI was used primarily to develop that technology, from what I understand. And so, from what we've seen, they always have more in the tank. There's more, always more in development than what we're actually getting access to. And so, I have no doubt, like his conviction for how good self driving is, to me, I believe it. And then you get these stories of people, what is it, they're using Waymo in California,
Hmm.
and some people are just swearing by it, saying that this makes Uber feel like what Uber felt like to taxis. And I can't believe we're even having that conversation so soon. And so this has been one of the reasons why Kathy Wood at ARK Invest has been saying that this will be a game changer and generate revenues the likes of which we're not modeling right now for the Tesla company, just based on car sales or battery sales. So but then the real question is that, okay, so what's the play, right?
Hmm.
Sure, you can just be long Tesla, totally, but if you want to do the degen route, you can do calls on Tesla. And I just wanted to pull this up because I
Sure.
always love to see what the option play is. And the idea here is that, let's say that Tesla does rise to $800 by next March. If that's the case, if you buy the highest call you can get is 630. I don't think you can get any higher than that. Yeah, 630 for March, which would cost you $965 for the call. But if it pays out, it can pay out between 12 and 16x. If it gets there like at the latest possible time next March. Obviously, if it gets there earlier, you can make 20 times the money on the premium. I find when I see a chart like this, then I go, oh, I sort of just want to. I sort of just want to take the trade, because why not? I'll put money like that on Polymarket. I might as well do it on options.
Sure. I think one way to help offset the risk of that a little bit would be to consider a call debit spread. That way, at least you're profiting from the sell side of that as well. And that gives you a little bit of protection on that end. But if you're extremely confident in the long-term success of AI being integrated into self-driving, then you probably would look at something like a long combo or a risk reversal, where you're essentially buying the call option but selling a put option to pay for the cost of those premiums at the same time.
That's right. Well, the call spreads I've always never loved because I hate capping my profits. Because you only make
True,
the
but that's
difference
how you
between
reduce some of that risk, right? And you're not completely exposed, other than the cost of the premium.
yeah, but I always prefer to cover my risk by having a smaller position, not by capping profits.
Got it.
I
Got it.
go Otherwise, I feel like, well, why am I taking this trade? Or there's other trades I don't have to swing for the fences like this. I could just make 10% on something else just regularly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how I feel. But
So
I'm
you
crazy when
see
it comes
this
to
this approach as more of the lottery ticket then. If it plays out, then you make a handsome reward. If it doesn't, you just pay the cost of the premiums.
yeah. Plus, if you want to, pitch this to a family member, pitch this to a friend, start talking to them about call spreads, like, oh, they're gonna roll their eyes and don't want to hear anything about it. But they
Yeah.
go, look, just press this button and buy a call inside your broker's account. Okay, I'll give that a shot.
Gotcha. Okay.
Then not only do you get the make the 20x profit, you also get to look like a hero to your family and friends, which I'm saying feels even better than anything else.
It's promising. I definitely agree overall with the sentiment that the news is probably overhyped to the bottom line here. I think it's important to, typically try to pay attention to what's actually happening to fundamentals for a company before you make any big calls. The news does a very good job of making things sound worse than they really are. With the rumors around people like rebranding their Teslas or putting Mazda or Audi symbols in the place of the Tesla logo.
People are doing that.
Absolutely. There's pictures of it on Twitter as well. I don't know if
I
you've seen
see.
this, but it is a little comedic because it says a lot about the potential for brand equity erosion that's occurring at Tesla. But how large scale has that really become is the bigger question. And I'm not sure that that's large enough to be a huge issue. So I definitely am in the camp of really wanting to keep an eye on Tesla now that it's pulled back so far.
Right. You get hardware you get software, you get political wins, you get meme stock craziness.
The
The Tesla
downside
stock is
is it does
really
not come without volatility. It is a shaky stock, so
that's right.
you can get in and still see another 20% downside even from getting in at this point. Uh,
Eek.
I think that's that's the danger you play. So sure, you could take a smaller position size, or you can hedge some of that risk out by trying to do some kind of a vertical spread.
You said you were looking. You might be looking at, like, you would be looking at entries 10% down, 10% down from today's closing price, or from the lows that we had a little while
I
ago.
might have actually missed it, to be honest. I think the better support zone would have been at about 220, which, obviously
Okay.
I tend to not buy in at those zones because I need confirmation first. We're starting to get closer to what I would consider confirmation before getting in. So unfortunately, I'm going to miss those bottoms at 220 unless it pulls back and pulls back even further from here. I would expect that the next support zone, which is like closer to this 63% drawdown or 65% drawdown, is closer to a price target of 178.
And just to mention, like, it retraced, but it was, these two gap fills over here.
Yeah, these gaps
Right.
are, well, those are the upside gaps, right? And so you're right. We filled both of those gaps now. But looking at the long-term picture, even from a fib retracement perspective, I think there's still room to pull back even further. We kind of touched that 0618 level at the 220. But I would expect if there's going to be one more pullback here, that we would pull back to the 786 level, which is at that 180 mark.
Okay, perfect. That actually coincide with what I'm feeling. I feel until we get past options expiry here, March 20th, I'm not really looking for any solid foundation. Like, one more liquidation down and then up, and we'll see.
Good play.
Before we jump into our final segment, let's take a moment to shout out TradersPost, the automated trading platform designed to take the friction out of executing your strategies. Whether you're trading stocks, futures, or crypto, TradersPost connects seamlessly to your broker or exchange, giving you the flexibility to automate your trades without missing a beat. If you're tired of being the bottleneck in your own success, it's time to let automation do the heavy lifting. Head over to traderspost.io and see how easy it is to streamline your trading. TradersPost, because your strategy deserves to run at full speed.